Hey guys, this is God of Politics. I'm going to go back to a brand new video, but before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But in today's video, I do want to talk about an article from the New York Times which just came out just now. I am just looking at this. I did read through this a couple times and it is very interesting, so I did want to talk about it from a video, And it does say a new analysis gives an early look at how the census may change the electoral map. So it does say here an analysis of the new Census Bureau data gives an early glimpse of how the nation's legislative map might change after the results of the 2020 census next year. Every decade, the Census Bureau adjusts the number of seats assigned to each state in the House of Representatives based on changes in its population as measured by the decennial census, in a process called reapportionment. The process also changes the total number of electoral votes, that each state has in the Electoral College, which mirrors the size of its congressional delegation, the sum of its number of House seats, and the 2 senators. So if a state like California, for example, has 53 representatives and 2 senators, they then have 55 electoral votes, which is how it is currently. So it does say Tuesday's analysis by William Frey, chief demographer for the Brookings Institute, is the best guess, given the data available now, of what the future map might look like. The Census Bureau will release the results of the 2020 census next year, and with it, the new state map. And it does say here that there are a number of states that are going to be losing electoral votes, and there's going to be a number of states that are gaining electoral votes. So this is the current electoral map results of the 2020 election. This is how the result ended up being. Joe Biden won 306 electoral votes. Donald Trump won 232 electoral votes, the exact same number, funnily enough, that Donald Trump won in 2016. So we do see here that Donald Trump was able to, or Joe Biden was able to pull off a victory by flipping, states across the map. He flipped Arizona in that Sun Belt area, Georgia also part of that Sun Belt area, and he flipped back traditionally Democratic states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, as well as flipping Nebraska's 2nd district, showing the signs of his suburban strength. But we do look at if you do want to look at how it will be impacted with those electoral vote changes, we can see that currently Joe Biden's at 306, Donald Trump's at 232. But if we implement those electoral vote changes for what it will look like after the 2020 census, what will it look like? So we do look, for example, first at the state of California, which is projected to lose an electoral vote. They would go down to 54, still the biggest prize of any state in the Electoral College, but they would go down 54. It also says these states would lose an Electoral College vote: Alabama, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota. So if we just do that real quick, Alabama, Illinois, as well as Michigan, or that's Minnesota, and Michigan. So that is a number of the states. Then we look at these other states: New York, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island. So we look at New York, Pennsylvania, as well as Ohio, as well as West Virginia, and finally the state of Rhode Island. So we can see that these are all of these states that are going to be gaining, or actually losing, these are all the states that are going to be losing one electoral vote after the 2020 census. You can see that the majority of these states are in this Rust Belt, Appalachia, if you want to include West Virginia in that, but it is in this northern area, the Midwestern area. And so you can see that this area has been steadily increasing, somewhat, sometimes even declining in a state like West Virginia in terms of population, and they are growing slowly, for sure, relative to the rest of the country. And so that is represented in their losses in electoral votes and also losses in congressional districts. It also does note here, New York would drop to 26 seats, leaving it with fewer than Florida for the first time. Florida would gain 2, bringing it to 29 and lifting it to 3rd place in the tally after California, Texas. So I do believe that New York having 28 would be the least that it's actually ever had. I'm not actually, for over 150 years. So back in, when the country was first founded, they had a lower number, but, they've had a number this high for a very long time. They were up at 31 before the 2010 census. They went down to 29, and they're now going down to 28 as well. This is also the first time that California will ever be losing an electoral vote. So you can see there that there are 10 states which are going to be losing exactly 1 electoral vote, but there's also a lot of states that are gaining electoral votes. And it does say that most of these states are in the South and the West. Texas would gain 3 seats. They're currently at 38. They would be going up to 41, which would remain their status as the 2nd largest electoral vote total, as well as Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, North Carolina would also be gaining electoral votes. Arizona, Oregon, as well as Colorado and the state of North Carolina. There are also a couple of other states that are going to be gaining electoral votes, including the state of Montana and the state of Florida, which is actually gaining 2 electoral votes. So we add the 2 in the state of Florida and the 1 in the state of Montana. So that does total up to 538 electoral votes. We can see here that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 states which are going to be either losing electoral votes or gaining electoral votes. 10 states losing them, 7 states gaining them, with Texas gaining 3 and Florida gaining 2, getting those extra 3 electoral votes to match the 10 states that are losing them. So we can see here that without the electoral votes, Donald Trump's at 115, Joe Biden's at 125, but that's a useless number. So let's fill in those states with how they did go in the 2020 election. So we fill in the blue states: Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, Rhode Island, as well as the state of Colorado, Arizona, California, Oregon. So that adds up to 302 electoral votes, a net 4 loss compared to his actual number in the 2020 election. Then we look at Donald Trump's numbers. We can see here he gains the state of Montana, Texas, Alabama, Florida, North Carolina, West Virginia, Ohio. So that adds up to 236 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 302. Certainly still less. Still a pretty strong victory for Joe Biden, but it is a net loss of 4 for Joe Biden and a net gain of 4 for Donald Trump. So those gains in the electoral vote actually did help Donald Trump. And so, one could make the argument saying, oh, well, people talk about these demographic changes helping the Democratic Party all the time. Well, why did they not help the Democratic Party in this election? And why did the electoral vote changes actually lower Joe Biden's margins if you apply them under the 2020 election result? And I'm going to explain why. And, it does talk here, but first we can see it says it used the Bureau's population estimates, which were released on Tuesday, and show population growth from July 2019 to July 2020. He combined them with similar estimates over the last decade and then applied an algorithm designed to calculate reapportionment by experts at the University of Michigan's Population Study Center. So this is most likely going to be what the map looks like. Maybe we see other states losing more, maybe we see a state gaining more, I don't know. But this is most likely what the map is going to look like. But the reason that it actually is going to help the Democratic Party in the future is because of the regions that are gaining the electoral votes versus the regions that are losing the electoral votes, juxtaposed to the regions which are trending blue versus the regions which are trending red. So, we look at the regions that are trending red the most. That includes the Midwestern area, particularly a state like Michigan, for example, which Joe Biden won by 3 points in this election, but Barack Obama won by 17 points in 2008. These are states that did not go blue, did not go red until 2016, back all the way going back to 1988, 1984 in some cases, and even 1972 in the state of Minnesota. But you can clearly make an argument that these states are trending towards the Republican Party. So, assume that the Republican Party does win these states, the states that are trending towards the Republican Party. You assume that those trends will continue and the Republicans will gain those states and pick them up. But then you apply that to the other side, these states that are trending towards the Democratic Party and how that's going to make a difference. You can say right off the bat, North Carolina and Texas, and that gets you all the way up to 306. Those 2 states alone have more than all 4 of these states here. 2 of those states already flipped to the Republican column. Those are also losing electoral votes. One of them is Ohio, that lost an electoral vote this decade and the last decade. Iowa lost an electoral vote last decade as well. So we do look at these states. North Carolina is gaining 1, Texas is gaining 3. They have a net gain of 4 between those 2, and we can see amongst these states, these have a net 3. So you do have a 7 difference between them. They're losing 3, they're gaining 4. These states have an electoral vote advantage over these 4 states to begin with. So that is favoring the Democratic Party. And, even without those changes in the electoral votes, if Republicans lose Texas, it's pretty much over for them. And sure, they did gain with Latinos in this election. They did have like 50-point swings in areas like Zapata County, Starr County, those kinds of counties along the Rio Grande Valley. I don't think that those trends are going to continue. You can go back to 2004. You can look at George Bush, who won around 40-45% of the Hispanic vote, and then Barack Obama, absolutely trounces McCain with Hispanic voters. Maybe it's just due to the thing that Donald Trump was able to turn him out with his ad game, which he did have in areas like Miami-Dade County, or, some other factor. Maybe they like incumbents, something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but I do believe that, Joe Biden also had weaknesses with them, but that's for a whole other video, which I've talked about before, and I will talk about in the future. But I don't think that the Hispanic voters are leaving the Democratic Party anytime soon, which is going to bode well for the Democrats in a state like Texas, in a state like Arizona, in a state like New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada. They're going to have pretty strong holds on those states, not necessarily Texas, but in the future I do expect it to go to the Democratic Party. And those states moving towards the Democratic column is going to help the Democrats not just, you can take out the electoral vote changes and it still helps them, but with the electoral vote changes, it gives them even more of a cushion, because you look at Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, Colorado, states that are gaining together 6 electoral votes between them. And sure, California is losing one, and as well as Alabama is losing one in the South. Those are southern states that are losing electoral votes, but overall, the general trend is that the Southwest is gaining in population. And in the future, that is going to help the Democratic Party, because the Democrats are gaining in these regions. And even if they, again, lose those Rust Belt regions, it's not going to do much for the Republican Party if they do lose the state of Texas. And part of the reason that the state of Texas is going up in electoral votes is because people from blue states, people from states like California, New York, and people coming in from Mexico, immigrants that are coming in from Mexico, not just Mexico, but all sorts of countries, but they are becoming citizens and they are voting for the Democratic Party, and that is helping turn Texas into a Democratic state. And that is something that is, I wouldn't say inevitable, but I do think that it's very likely that we're going to see Texas turn into a blue state sometime in the future, maybe 8 years, 2028, it could be the year, 2024 maybe, even if Democrats have a very good year with a good economy. But again, I'm going off into tangents here because there's just so much you can talk about with this electoral map. But overall, the gist of it is that Joe Biden and overall the Democratic Party is going to be helped by these electoral vote changes. Maybe not necessarily in the short term of the first election, but in the long term and even the medium term, they are going to be helped by these electoral vote changes, because the areas that are moving to them on a whole are the areas that are gaining in electoral votes. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But again, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys later.